said, Jan and I are thrilled to be here today to talk about the career roadmap for college students on the spectrum, which is a project that Jan and I have been working on for the last 18 months or so, which is really an ebook or a step-by-step guide for career success. And we're going to, but first, before we jump into sharing about that, wanted to give a little bit more of background about where we're from. My name is Rachel Gerber, and I am the Associate Director at the Career Development Center. And not only as a career coach here that mainly works with first-year students, helping them transition into college and to explore who they are, what they want to study, and get connected into the thinking, more developmentally in the world of work. I'm also the administrative lead connecting with our campus partners and non-academic units to support students with specific populations. So I work directly and quite closely with the AES office, or the Accessible Educational Services, formerly known as the Office of Disability Services for students here on campus. And I'm thrilled to introduce Mr. Jan Van Dyke here with us, who is also my wonderful colleague. So Jan, you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Rachel. I'm Jan Van Dyke. I'm the Senior Assistant Director of the Career Development Center. And over the years, I've worked with a variety of student populations. Like Rachel, I work with our exploratory students that are freshmen and sophomores. In the past, I've worked with graduate students, worked with veterans, students with disabilities, the 21st century scholars, group students, or first generation students to go to college. And in addition to that, my background I've changed careers myself. I originally was in politics, worked on Capitol Hill for U.S. Senator, and had various jobs in that field. I was also a director of a nonprofit organization with 7 jobs or support groups, working with people of all ages who've been laid off from work. Also was a VISTA volunteer in Service to America, where I work with people over age 50 who are laid off from work and help them find jobs. So that's a little bit about my background. And as you can see, I've worked with a lot of different populations. So our agenda for today will be Rachel's going to give us a little background on how this project started. And I'm going to talk a little bit why career planning is very important, especially for students on the spectrum. We're going to share the roadmap that we've developed, which is very detailed. And then we're happy to take questions as we go along, and you can put that in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer your questions as we go through the presentation.
All right, so how did this project get started? I alluded to it a little bit here at the beginning, but that it's been about an 18-month or so project that we've been working towards. But I was originally connected through, again, my associate director connections, working with our campus partners, by Cecilia Buckley, who works for the Indiana Institute on Disability and Community. And she's also the staff faculty representative for the Students on the Spectrum student group organization, campus group that's here on IU Bloomington's campus. And she said, my students, they who are neurodiverse, they're like towards the end of their college experience, like everything just feels so stressful, and they're trying to find, figure out, oh goodness, graduation's coming up. I haven't really thought about what's next because I've been so focused on doing the schoolwork and getting everything done that I didn't really take the time to sort of think ahead about, what and to plan for what's next. And so she was like, that how can we help to support our students, just in essence, kind of create these mile markers along the way? Because college is a lot. College can be overwhelming, and especially for students on the spectrum, to be able to have sort of those mile markers that one can look at and to say, these are what I need to get forth for one particular thing, to be very specific. Also recognizing that all students are very different. All students sort of come at their own college experience and what they're interested in, what they're looking for, and what they want to plan for, very different. So can we create a resource together that really demystifies this mysterious process of how do you get an education that then translates into the working the working world in an industry to utilize that educational experience. And so henceforth came forth this college roadmap plan, and it's taken a couple different forms of, like, how much detail to get so you don't overwhelm a student, but how can we also give enough information that's not too overwhelming, but that gives enough direction that will cross the board of all interests in students. But before we really do this unveiling process, Jan, would you talk about why just college and career planning are absolutely key to finding, yeah, opportunities after one graduates?
Right. Thank you, Rachel. It was really important for all students, but especially students on the spectrum, to start very early in their first year of college. And we have research that shows us that better outcomes come for students who have started early and have done their career planning. If they meet with a career coach in their first year at college, they're much more likely to stay in college and to be motivated because they found a career direction, they found a major, and they found a career direction. So that helps with their overall performance in school and the retention to stay in college. And then it's really important that not only do they start with that in their freshman year, but in their sophomore and junior year, to start getting experience, to get internships, to get part-time jobs, to have career-related volunteering. All these are key indicators that help also students do that. They're much more successful in actually getting a job after college and having much more graduation success. In addition, it's critical for students on the spectrum to practice job interviews and and we in the Career Center are advocate for the student as well as with employers, so they understand the challenges that a student on the spectrum will have in a job interview. And so we prepare the students and then we actually do mock job interviews. So we role play the job interview with the student. So they build their confidence, they know what questions to expect, and they will give specific examples of their skills that match the job description that they're applying for. So for all those reasons, early career planning in college is critically important.
So here's an overview about this career roadmap for college students, which in essence is an ebook. It's a digital book resource that's linked on the web, and I'll have a QR code and a link here in the next slide. But really what it is, it's a step-by-step guide for each year of the college. Oftentimes students think that they have to do all the things all at once, but we really also are trying to break down to what are the most critical things at each developmental milestone. Also, like I said before, recognizing that each student, there's lots of different on-ramps, right? People are going to be starting at different places, different stages, but in essence, to follow through, these are some best practices that we've noted to really walk a student through 4 years plus of a university setting. So the step-by-step guide, it also includes these best career practices for career development, like what Jan was talking about. How do we get connected? How do we prepare for the interview? Things like that. It also equips students with the knowledge about how career services works here on Indiana University Bloomington's campus to be able to navigate that with more ease. There's so much information that our students receive, day in and day out in the university. And Indiana University Bloomington is such a ginormous institution that oftentimes it's hard to figure out how everything works. And so we really do a step-by-step of this is who your career coach is, this is where to find them, this is how to make an appointment, sort of step-by-step to really demystify the process and simplify things. We also contain, and this is a really unique part of, I think, what this resource offers. And Jan, especially, I want to give him all the credit for this. He really did a deep dive into research to really create a robust appendix for job or internship seekers, which lists employers that he'll be talking about in more detail, that have affinity groups for, for different types of, diversity within the workforce, especially that are friendly towards students on the spectrum or with autism. Lists employers who provide those accommodations, as well as talking about disclosures of the do's and the don'ts, and what is best practices for that. So this is a bit of a brief overview, and we're going to go through step by step about what we actually mean by exploring, connecting, experience, finding your next step in post grad, as well as those appendixes. So this is the QR code, and this is the hyperlink. If you would like to even open it up right now, feel free to do that. But we can also make sure that gets put in the chat, as well. But in essence, like I said before, thinking about that first year student coming in and entering college from high school, it's really critical that they explore. Oftentimes we choose we choose what we think we want to do in the world of work based on maybe what we've been exposed to or what we see in our community. And so that first year is really about exploration to make sure that, our sets are being sort of set in the trajectory in the way that is most connected to a student's gifts and skill sets and values, and what all that looks like from that self-discovery point of view. And then we're going to talk about connecting and how connection is so critical to finding jobs, and what does it mean to build your network, and also to connect with starting to connect with some of those skill development. Third year is really all about building some of those critical skills and experiences. Now, again, doesn't mean you have to wait until your third year in college, or however that third year rolls out, until that point. But it's definitely, this is the time that, with graduation sort of coming and looming ahead, that you definitely want to make sure that we're talking with a career coach, that we're trying to find avenues of ways that we can get some more career specific opportunities to develop those skill sets. And then the fourth year is really starting to set your sights after, and what's next. And just, again, like Jan said, giving yourself plenty of time in which to do that, so you don't feel rushed. There's not this critical, extra stress that happens that second semester of your senior year. And then talking about some post-grad, and some amazing resources that Indiana University Bloomington has for alumni, as well as then just showcasing this awesome, robust appendix and resources. All right, so going into first and foremost to this explore mode. What we've also done within this career roadmap is that we have given a snapshot of what are the absolute most critical pieces and parts for a first year student in college, to really be thinking about in terms of moving sort of this career development piece. But then we've also gone through and explain this in a little bit more detail. Now, this is still like a snapshot. We actually then have taken each of these bullet points down, and then in this ebook format, written out exact, step-by-step ways for the students to make those examples sort of come alive. And so really this first year, like I said before, is all about exploration. It's meeting with your career coach, it's establishing those relationships. And here at Indiana University, every single student is assigned or has access to a career coach, which I think is an amazing opportunity for our students. Always free, and they can come and see students. Students can see us unlimited times, right? So to make that relationship, and the only thing is that, especially here at IU, it's not a requirement. It's students will have to take that initiative. And so in this career roadmap, we really lay it out step by step that this is how you actually make an appointment, so that the students, again, it's that mysterious demystification process is all taken out. So what do you talk with your career coach about, right? And the career roadmap really goes into what are some topics, and we list out lots of different topics and why those topics might be important. exploring majors, choices, and interests, sort of doing those self-assessments, making sure that your major is really aligning to what your interests are, what your skill sets are, how your personality is uniquely wired, in your, your personal values. How does that all lead up to the world of work? And then the last part is the research industries for your major. Oftentimes, like I said before, we come in with more of a narrow set of like what kind of jobs are out there in the world. But especially with technology shifting and changing and globalization, the world is so much larger. And new industries are always emerging too. And so your career coach can really step by step help these students to research, to understand industries in their major, but they do it at a pace and a way that can work with each individual student depending on their needs.
Rachel, we have a question.
Sure.
Is there, Andrea Brody wants to know, is there a similar office at IUPUI? She says, she's aware of an AES office, but wasn't sure about the other.
Yeah, great question. So, all campuses in the IU system have a career center. Indiana University Bloomington has career centers in each of those particular schools, in addition to the Career Development Center, which is where we are, which helps for the pre-major, exploratory, and transfer students. But IUPUI does have a career center. I'm not exactly sure logistically how it's hooked in, if it's like the tailor-made within the schools within IUPUI, or if it's just one career center. I'm not exactly sure about, but all students do have access to career coach on all IU campuses. Yeah. And again, just to sort of become a little bit more specific with pulling out those threads here for this first year of exploring that industry research, professional skills, talking about, students oftentimes come in with many more skill sets than they even really realize. We oftentimes think traditionally like, well, if they haven't had a quote unquote job, then there's, what kind of skills do they have? But career coaches can help students to articulate, what classes did they take in high school, and to pull apart what are some of those skill sets that they learn. Maybe it's written communication, maybe it's more data analytics, things like that. And then how can you showcase that on a professional resume? And so oftentimes creating that first professional resume with some of those experiences that maybe students have within a project or something in class that they have, if they haven't had any part-time jobs from high school, is a real confidence booster, because they do and are starting to identify and to recognize the skill sets that they are bringing in order to think for their next steps. Jan, I'm going to pass it over to you to talk about the second step, which is connecting your second year.
Okay, so just before we talk about connecting in their second year or their sophomore year, going back to that exploring, it's really important, especially for students on the spectrum, to not only research careers that relate to their interests, but to their work values, to their aptitudes, to the skills they enjoy using, to their personality, to their temperament. The more the job matches who they are, the more they're going to love the job. The more the job doesn't match who they are, the more they're going to dislike that job. So that is, as far as the exploration part, that's a critical part. I always tell my students, the whole person goes to the job, not just your interests or not just your skills. So in the second year, we're going to meet with you again, continue to meet with your career coach, and the career coach will help the student find what I call career-related volunteering. Maybe they're interested in the health field or being a doctor or being any occupational therapist, any job in the health field. They could volunteer in emergency room of a hospital, for example. Part-time job, look for part-time jobs related to their career interests. They could join what I call a career-related student organization. Indiana University has 650 student organizations. Some of those are directly related to a career field. For example, the fashion and apparel students have their own student organization, and they bring alumni and friends of IU virtually or in person to talk about their career paths and how they got started. And we have many different career-related student organizations. The student wants to start connecting with these organizations. And in their second year, we can also help them write the resume and help them get started with that. And we'll always help them, you know, as they get experiences to add that to the resume. So building experience is critically important in making the connections. Another way of making those connections is having informational interviews, where a student goes out and just talks and interviews someone that they're interested, a career they're interested in. So let's say they're interested in being a physical therapist, they would do an interview with a physical therapist and ask how did they get started, why do they like their job, what are some of the challenges of their job. And we will help the student with the emails, with the phone conversation. How do you make that appointment? How do you approach somebody who's a professional in the field? We'll give the student questions. What are questions that they can ask? We will show them websites and resources to help them research that field. And we'll also get them connected to job shadowing during the informational interview. Is it possible that they could observe someone doing that job? In whatever that job might be, most industries will have that, you know, you could observe for an hour or two and seeing them on the job itself. We have many career fairs, and all our IU campuses will also conduct career fairs and internship fairs where they can meet employers, learn about how to apply to internships, and learn about what are the different career paths. Many employers will come to campus and do information sessions, either virtually or in person, and they'll talk to students about opportunities in their organization and how to apply for internships. In addition to helping develop and continue to develop their professional skills, besides writing the resume, we'll help them tailor and make a cover letter that goes with a resume that matches them to the job description or the internship description. We'll help them write the thank you note or the thank you email, and we'll practice their interview skills. And whether it's for an internship and later for a full-time job, but at this point in the second year, it would be role-playing an interview for an internship. So for the second year student, the connections, making these connections are critically important. So the student on the spectrum they're going to learn about themselves doing this. They're also going to learn what is out there that might match who they are.
Great. So again, these things we're hoping to just continue to scaffold, right? Some of this is rinse and repeat that we're going to be circling back to every year. But really this third year, this junior year is all about building that experience, and especially experience that's more specifically related to an industry or a career field that they are interested in going into and learning more about. So again, to meet with that career coach is going to be critical. That career coach is going to be able to help them to think about, you know, different strategies for identifying these internships, these additional connections and professional networks, as well as to continue to practice and to develop their interview skill sets. And so really, another big thing to think about, it depends on the industry too, but oftentimes, like what Jan said, starting earlier is so helpful, right? Oftentimes, depending on the industry, they have recruiting cycles. So oftentimes students in the fall are actually already applying for internships for the following summer. And so in some companies, you know, they're closing those internship opportunities by the end of September. And so really knowing and working with your career coach to know, you know, if there are particular companies or industries that you're looking at, to know what are those recruiting or those hiring cycles is really going to be important. to start early. Also thinking about LinkedIn and how are you starting to showcase yourself from a professional sort of standpoint. LinkedIn is a fantastic platform to get connected with professionals. And again, like Jan said, to build upon those connections, those professional networks, opportunities, informational interviews on a larger scale. LinkedIn is a wonderful way to be able to do that. Attending career center events. I'm assuming this would be the same on other IU campuses, but for sure here at IU, career centers have events that are happening all the time. Oftentimes we're bringing in recruiters, they're bringing in alumni who are working in different companies to talk with students about the industries, the ins and the outs, the things that are happening. So to really encourage students, and you can encourage your child, if they are in college, to go to these things, to seek out, to kind of keep this on their radar. Because like I said before, anyone can go through college and get a degree at the end, but what's going to really create that robust degree that employers are looking for are these experiences that you build alongside. It's sort of like a parallel road that we're building. So it's that educational journey as well as you're building that experience right next to it. Again, continuing to develop those professional skills, continuing to update the resume, getting those reviewed, developing your cover letters, understanding how do you write a professional thank you note, really just that professional communication that you have with employers, that you have with other alumni that are working to build those networks. As well as to start creating your reference lists. And hopefully you are able to be having opportunities to build some of those skill sets, whether that's a part-time job, whether that's leadership in a student club or organization, or maybe you're volunteering, but you're gaining those experiences and skill sets that are leading you forward. And we're going to also talk about in a little bit too, Jan's going to talk about some virtual work simulations as well as micro internships that are fantastic alternate experiences of what we think of the typical internship experience that students typically latch onto. I have to have that official internship experience. And yes, that is very helpful, but there's also other ways that you can build experience that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Developing a portfolio to be able to showcase the work that you've done as well as the projects that you've been working on, maybe in your classes. Again, this is going to be dependent on industries and what the students are looking for in terms of work, but that can also be helpful for students on the spectrum to be able to showcase, this is the work that I've done, this is the feedback I've received from that, which just continues to go to showcase their skill set and development. And lastly, industry research. Things are shifting and changing all the time. Graduates that are going, into the career fields this year when they're graduating, some of them are going into industries that weren't even developed 4 years ago when they got started in college, right? We're into a really unprecedented time right now that with technology, things are shifting and changing so fast. And so to be able to continue to have that relationship with your career coach, to research those new industries, how things are shifting and changing, what's specifically going on within those companies is going to continue to help our students on the spectrum to really identify, is this the right place for me? Because it's not even just about the what am I doing, but the where am I doing it at, right? To find more of that good cultural fit. So that job search strategy is going to be a really important conversation to have this third year.
All right, so next we're going to look at your next steps. So now we're in our fourth year, or our senior year, again, working with your career coach. And now we want to prepare for the interviews and also critically the job search strategies. So we're going to build on what we've learned in our second and third year. And again, review the LinkedIn profile, to continue to attend career and internship fairs. Here at IU Bloomington, they're most likely be in September, January, and February. Some of our career centers will have events where they can network and meet with alumni. And again, alumni will come back and give presentations about their career path. continue to be involved in their career-related student organization. So this fourth year, again, is building on what they've learned in their sophomore and junior years. Again, working on their resume, their cover letter, their thank you notes that need to be sent within 24 hours after the job interview, a thank you email. Again, having a good reference list and how to go about asking for references and sort of coaching your references as well, keeping your reference in touch, keeping in touch with your reference as you have job interviews. Again, lots of practice. Students on the spectrum are going to need lots of practice, lots of role playing to try to lower that anxiety level, to know what to expect, and to look at the job interview from the employer's viewpoint. What is the employer looking for? And matching their skills and their personal characteristics to the specific job that they're applying to, and really understanding how their skills match the job description they're applying to. Reviewing a professional wardrobe, what's appropriate to wear for the job interview. The career coach will help them with that. Also learning about salary negotiation and how to navigate this. And that's another topic, and especially in this fourth and senior year, they can talk to the career coach. Again, the career coach will help them research specific companies and organizations, whether it be federal government, state government, nonprofit, small business, large corporation. And especially working on what are effective job search strategies. You want to look at advertised job openings, but you want to look at what's called the hidden job market. These are jobs that aren't advertised very well. And you know, how do you network and how do you find these jobs that are maybe not advertised very on a large scale? So a lot of work in the senior year, but again, it's based on what they've done their second and third year.
Great. And then just real quick, for post-graduation, oftentimes we think, you know, once graduation happens, like that's it, figure it out now. But actually IU has a really robust IU alumni network that college students here who graduate from IU are able to tap into, are able to continue with that critical piece of connection, like what Jan was saying, within the hidden job market. That's 80% of the ways that we actually find and hear about jobs and land jobs. And so utilizing the IU alumni services, they also have career services that any alumni can connect with, no matter their own age or stage. Afterwards, I think there is a fee for some of that career coaching later on, but there is free young alumni professional resources that students can get connected back in with their career coach. Oftentimes that's, you know, within 3 years of post-graduation, they can still connect with their career center on campus. And then after that, it is more of the broader IU alumni association. But there are resources for students that, you know, maybe they get into their first job and they're like, you know, we learn so much about ourselves as we are in, you know, any type of work situation. And oftentimes, you know, that first job after college really helps to sort of, again, set and to recalibrate where we want to go. We learn more about ourselves and the industry for that next step. And so knowing that there still is career services available to a student can be really, really helpful. All right, so we're going to jump into here now, this appendix and resources that I think is a really wonderful addition to this career roadmap. So Jan, I'm going to send it over to you to talk about this.
Okay, so the first one, and Rachel, you could open this up as a second appendix, reasons to disclose or not disclose, and if they're to disclose their disability, when do you do that? How do you do that? And the career coach will help them with that. The federal government has the Job Accommodation Network, known as JAN, which helps students actually approach an employer with this question of disclosing a disability. How do you go about that? When do you go about that? So I put together a collection of resources to help students with that question. So next, the next appendix is we look at So we have some,
You gonna go here? We can go to the next one too.
yeah, the career success stories. Let's see. Uh, we have sort of some suggestions based on past experiences of where students on the spectrum have found jobs. Just some ideas that we have there, because especially their visual abilities, just some ideas for them to, as possibilities to consider. Then the Appendix 3 are a list of companies that have specific employee recruitment programs that are looking for neurodiverse students and students on the spectrum. And I've listed those, and there's, as you'll see, there's quite a long list of organizations and companies that are out there recruiting students that are on the spectrum, whether it's an internship program or for full-time jobs. And this is a comprehensive list that I was able to discover of companies that are being proactive in that way. So next we'll go to the next appendix. And we have some companies will actually have round tables where they are getting together not only to hire students with autistic talent, but they have intentional programs to recruit them, and within the organization, discussions of how do we set up inclusive programs? How do we set up an internship program that would be welcoming of students on the spectrum? And so these, again, are companies that are being proactive and setting up proactive programs and having roundtable discussions even within their organization. So next we'll go on to the next appendix, and these are very employer perspective of what they're doing and what they're finding. And some employers are even setting up situations where they do the interview very differently, and because they're sensitive to the needs of the student on the spectrum. And so they have they've set up different programs to help them with the interview process, so to do it a little bit differently than for other students. That whole communication piece, which is so important. So this is, and then this appendix are organizations that advocate for autistic individuals, and we have a list of those as well. I did a lot of research on this. I've talked with career professionals at other career centers across the United States, and I could not find anywhere a resource like this that Rachel and I have created. We created the roadmap, but we've created, and here you see national organizations that are advocating for students on the spectrum as well. And to put a lot of these resources all in one place that we've done with these appendix, in addition to the career roadmap. And I think it makes this this IU Press book to be extremely valuable for as parents, for career professionals, and for a wider community. And here is job listings. I created an appendix just for some organizations that have specific job listings that are supporting students on the spectrum. So these are, again, a way of recruiting students for their job opportunities at their company. So we have that. So it's a very comprehensive appendix that you can review, and it would be helpful for the students on the spectrum. And the career roadmap is purposely very detailed So the student can step by step work through from the very first year of college, work with a career coach, and work all the way through the process.
Just wanted to also highlight our diverse student identity pages that we have at the Career Development Center. And one of them is specifically for students with neurodiversity. And we highlight one of our amazing students, Abe, who's a part of our Students on the Spectrum club, and he shared some of his what he's learned from his college and to career journey. And so that's a really wonderful resource that we also have. In addition, Jan, do you want to just briefly talk about the
Yeah.
workforce recruitment program?
Yeah, I'm also the coordinator for the workforce recruitment program here at IU. This is for students with disabilities that are interested in internships or full-time jobs with the federal government. And I help students connect with this program where a federal human resource specialist will interview students and put them into a database, and it gives them the opportunity to have interviews with federal agencies. Also, we have on our website ways that students can have what are called micro internships to get some small experiences. And Parker Dewey's a platform that helps students find short-term projects. Forage is a nonprofit that helps students have a 5 to 6 hour virtual experience with a Fortune 500 company. So that way they can get some hands-on experience. These are sort of like mini internships, and they're all free for students to register for.
And Parker Dewey, you actually are paid, students are paid for that. And so there's these little things that it's really an easy, low barrier way for students to work in their own time to gain some experience. And lastly, just want to highlight Inclusively, which is a new workforce platform. So we're used to monster.com or Indeed. Inclusively is actually a workforce inclusion platform where the companies that are on there are actively looking for students across the spectrum with neurodiversity, with disabilities, and with all of the job accommodations are listed up front with each of the job postings. So that's sort of, do I disclose? Do I not disclose? I mean, you can obviously still decide that yourself personally, but that has also been taken off the table because all of the companies who are there are willing to make accommodations, and they list up front what accommodations they're willing to do. So Inclusively is a great opportunity for that
Option.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for this time, Melissa. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you both for the presentation. I've learned so much. I'm so happy that you guys are here at IU and that other universities across the state also have this going on for the students.